Yeah, thank you, Nilesh, and a very good morning, everyone, and welcome to a power-packed session on technology and future of manufacturing. So before we start onto the panel discussion, first let me thank Motoring India for this initiative and providing a platform where we can exchange ideas and thoughts. And clearly, the outcomes of the session and discussion, with brightest minds present in this conference, I hope, making India an automotive powerhouse, which is also the theme of the conference, will be true. So before I start, so let me set some context. Today, if we see, India is one of the most vibrant markets in the world, and world is looking at India. Clearly, I see there is a lot of optimism in the country. It may be because of young demography, it may be because of political stability, it may be because of India has just crossed $2,500 GDP per capita. And that was the time, it was an inflection point for China automotive industry when their market exploded. Maybe that's one of the reasons, why even government is focused on automotive industry, as automotive industry also contributes almost 50% of the manufacturing GDP. So obviously it's all great about industry, right? But one of the challenges, which our industry is going through today, that it is no more about box on the wheels. It is about technology device on the wheels, right? So the word technology, comes there. And today our session on technology and future of manufacturing, I think this is what we are going to talk about. So now I think another point, which is in the mind of all of us, is that which technologies our organizations should invest in, how much they should invest in. Is it the right time to invest in that technology? And we have distinguished leaders from the industry, from the suppliers as well as OEMs, from the entire ecosystem, where we'll try to address these queries. So welcome, Mr. Prashant. So you are just in time, huh? JIT, right?
My apologies.
No, that's fine. So I think JIT is popular in industry, so it works. So just to give you a background, so we are just talking about the India optimistic story, right? And how we clearly see, automotive industry obviously is the backbone of Indian economy, right? And we clearly see this industry really growing, and we are just at the inflection point. So I think with this, obviously technology plays a pretty important role here, right? So now my very first question, is that globally, we are seeing there are two clear narratives across the globe. So if we see West, so West is clearly pushing regulations. So they are pushing mandates around ADAS, they are pushing mandates around sustainability, right? And this is how West is working. And China is trying to build technology at a scale, and they are trying to surprise the world with innovations around connected cars, in-cabin experience. It can be around ADAS, it can be around electrification, right? So there are two different approach philosophies which are working in the world today, right? So I think my very first question to you, Mr. Subramaniam, so how do you see, so should India follow the West approach, or should we follow China approach and be innovative, right? Or just like West, we keep on following West in terms of, pushing up regulations and doing technology and advancements, or we come like China, innovate and surprise the world, obviously keeping in mind, the challenges we have in terms of price parity, in terms of cost, in terms of infrastructure issues, in terms of policy volatility. So what is your thought, what should be the India approach towards the regulations, as we move forward?
Thank you. Once again, Dr. Subramanian, Senior Vice President, Ashok Leyland. I head the new technologies, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me here. I have a very strong and polarized view on this topic. A lot of Indian companies ask themselves, should I be a leader or should I be a fast follower, right? And very often, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, that's a different discussion, different argument. But I think we have been a follower for long enough. Are we fast? I don't know, because people think you can be a fast follower, but unless you attempt to be a leader and you're ready with certain technologies and stuff like that, it's very hard to even follow quickly because it takes time to follow. To me, the answer for India lies in being a leader and being extremely innovative in the process. We are a billion plus people, and which means we have a billion plus brains. We are not using it enough, is my humble submission. It's also self-criticism in a sense. I was giving a talk at a college lecture, at a college event, and I was just trying to pick the brains of the students in the audience because I believe students are not as constrained as we are, and therefore they will think much more broadly. And they gave me some crazy ideas, right? So I just posed a problem to them asking, how do you solve the traffic problem in India? Which is a problem in almost any growing city. So it's the price we pay for growth. Traffic congestion is kind of the price we pay for uncontrolled growth in some sense. One of the ideas was, there was a person who said, if as humans, if we are in, for example, a crowded temple festival, for instance, we fill all the gaps in the queue on the way to see the shrine, which means we use our shoulders to push and shove, and we somehow get in, and somehow we achieve a huge throughput of people from the entry to the exit of the festival queue. And we are able to do that because we are made of a material that doesn't scratch or dent. We are not afraid to hit other people with our shoulders because we don't scratch and we don't dent. Why can't we do the same thing for an automobile? Today, an automobile is made of a material that is basically steel, and on top of it, it's painted, and there's a little bit of plastic. But if all of this scratches, all of this dents, and it's expensive to repair it. So that was a spark of innovation that we're actually pursuing, trying to see if there's some merit in that. Can you actually make an automobile out of a material that is flexible, and even if it hits to a point, cannot scratch, cannot dent, right? And why is this a solution to the traffic problem? It probably isn't, but the thought process of that student was, if you see a high traffic road in any city in India, you still see some gaps. Not all the gaps are filled. And why are those gaps not filled? Because people are afraid to enter those gaps because they are afraid that they have to squish through and therefore they'll end up damaging the body. And if you solve it this way, in other words, make better use of available road, then it is something that you can use to pack more vehicles in the same road space. Right, so I'm just giving you this as it sounds crazy, but it's innovative. It's a very Indian solution, right? And we somehow mentally constrain ourselves saying that we have to copy regulations from Europe, we have to admire regulations, admire innovations from the US, China, wherever, right? But there's a little bit of a mental roadblock in all of us that prevents us from proposing these crazy disruptive ideas. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of these. And for example, the move to electric automobiles, to me, is not just going green. To me, it's giving us an opportunity to rethink how the vehicle itself is built, because an electric vehicle, even though today is an adaptation of an IC engine vehicle, it's largely a similar modular construction. An electric vehicle actually gives us the opportunity to completely rethink how a vehicle is built, right? You don't have an engine in front and the wheels in the back. You can actually put everything in the back. For instance, there's many, many things like this that you can do, which fundamentally rethinks these concepts. And we have to do something like this in a very uniquely Indian way. And I can provide some examples later on through the session if we have the time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Subramaniam. I think it's great fantastic views, and, great to see that we need not be the follower anymore, right? We really need to innovate and create some great examples, right? So I think maybe electric is one, CNG is another one. CNG doesn't sell anywhere, but it sells in India. So, Mr. J, what are your thoughts about it? So how do you think what approach India should follow?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Puneet, for this opportunity. I'm Jay Kumar from Value. See, I would say that first our approach should be what is our fundamental goal as a country. I would say two things. One is reducing CO2 emissions, but at what time frame? I think the government has defined that by 2070. So there is a time frame for it. So how to meet those time frame as an automotive industry, how we can meet. And also on improving safety. So these two are the things besides the transportation means and convenience of transportation and also affordability. I think we should have a mixed approach. Even, for example, China, it's not only the innovation and scale, but also there have been, for example, EV has been driven by the regulations and subsidies. So in India, we can have, the mix of both. When I say, India-specific requirements, like, for example, AMT is unique to India, automatic manual transmission, which is not there in, it is there, but in a large scale, it is implemented in India. CNG fuel is in India. Two-wheeler, three-wheeler electrification. For example, Value kind of a company, global company, we are a leader in electrification in the world, especially in Europe and China. But we don't have the same two-wheeler, three-wheeler electrification other parts of the world. But we are designing for India for this small mobility segment.
Right. Thank you, sir. I think a balanced approach, right, between West and China. And then I think Valio is a great example of global, which is a global company, but they are really working in a local way to even fulfill categories in India, two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So now we come to maybe Ajay.
Once again, thank you for having me on the panel. What India can do, particularly in the mobility space, a lot is happening, and we must give credit to the government and participants, entrepreneurs who are contributing to the success of this industry. I don't belong to this industry. My background, I have never worked or spent time in mobility or automotive industry. 25 years, 20 years being a consultant in one of the big four firms. And last 5 years, I've spent time in Vedanta, lead their strategy and finance. I just joined Minda Group a month back. So in a way, I'm a toddler or a student insofar as automotive industry is concerned. But I've spent a lot of time in capital market, how the value gets created, what industries are doing, how things are moving, what's the focus area, and many, many, many other things. Close home, what India should do. Couple of things. Mr. Panda talked about clean tech, clean energy. A lot is happening about localization, and when people talk about localization, they talk about manufacturing, whether it is automobile or auto component in India. But a less has been spoken about the technology, the software, the brain behind developing the component or developing the automobile. A very less emphasis is on these areas. While we can bring the technology, we can bring the manpower, we can bring the brain power into India and do those localization, unless and until we focus approach towards technology which goes beyond developing this, I'm not so sure how we can call ourselves to be a Atmanirbhar India. Point number one. Point number two, I'll not emphasize too much about the clean tech technology, but you look at what's happening. I did spend some time in Detroit as well to look after some of those large automobile company, how they are doing. 10 years back, fast forward 10 years now, many of those automobile factories do not have manpower. And when I joined Minda Group, when I went to one of their plants, I saw less machine, more people. So I think this transition will be far more interesting and painful For a country like India, when Mr. Subramaniam talked about, we have 1.4 billion people. Give or take, 1 out of 7 individual in the world is Indian. So we have supplied human resources, manpower globally, and we will have this challenge the moment we look at cobot, collaborative technology and robot, when these technologies are going to take over the factories. Last but not the least, a lot of investment needs to be done. I come from a finance background, therefore I must touch upon that topic. When you build a factory, when you build a capacity to service your client, whether indigenous or export, you spend a lot of capital. But this technology, whether you talk about automobile or per se any industry, it's extremely fast moving. And interestingly, in the automobile industry, my understanding is that to adopt any new product, the circle is close to about 36 to 48 months before a vendor approves your technology or a product. Before it actually runs on the wheel, it takes around 36 to 48 months. I am not so sure whether you can commit that kind of huge capital because of the flux of technology and the evolvement of technology, whether you will still remain relevant after 36 to 48 months. I think this time period needs to be crunched, and India should take a leading position. How do you crunch this time period in order to be far more effective and efficient?
Yeah, thank you, Ajay. So we need to be more agile, right, in terms of bringing more innovations and technology. So I jump from Vikas firstly to Mr. Prashant. So Mr. Prashant, Continental has, championed innovations, and I think one of the biggest R&D spenders in innovations, right? So what is your thought process about West versus China? China is more towards innovation, West is more about bringing regulation. So what do you think India follows?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, my apologies for arriving 2 minutes late. Thank you to be part of this panel. Maybe before I answer this, I go back to the first question. I think if I take just 1 minute, if you look at the evolution of automotive, even 20 years back, the car used to be purely mechanical, rubber, plastic, metal, little bit of wiring on this. Then slowly we started adding electronics to that. With that, electronics came in software, and today we are already talking about software-defined vehicle. That has really caused or causing us a transformation for all of us, and still we are struggling. Number two, if you look at the regulations per se, and there are a couple of factors. I think there are a couple of things which are driven by regulations, maybe sustainable mobility, electrification, what we are talking about, or to some extent safety factors. But there are other things which are driven by consumer preferences, be connected, convenient features. So it's a combination of both. Number three, should India be driving penetration? Today it's about 30 cars per 1,000.
35.
And the western part of the world is burdened with single ownership. Should India be chasing that? Or India be looking for something really different, which is given our infrastructural challenges, given our population, given our other cost challenges. So should we be looking at something which could be affordable? And even for us, technology is not a challenge, honestly, because it's available in somewhere the other part of the world within Continental. But can you really bring it and make it work? No. So when you bring it, how do you make it affordable? How do you make it robust? How do you make it adaptable to the Indian? This thing is what we are, because India is a real value-driven company. I think that's where India can take a lead in terms of how do we make this mobility much more affordable for the global.
Right. So I pick from here. So basically what you are saying is that technologies have to be more inclusive. Right, so we should try to involve everybody. So now I jump on to Vikas. So Vikas, what are the two disruptive technologies that your organization believe will redefine the future of Indian automotive industry? And specifically, here to quote an example, since you are from Webatso, so we are seeing, energy generating glasses being developed in countries like South Korea, China, and it's a great example of design with utility, right? So can you just talk about two disruptive technologies in your domain, which you think can really be the future in India.
Thanks, Puneet. Thanks for having me, and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. See, when it comes to disruptive technologies, we've been seeing it. It was my pleasure to seeing Mr. Panda close to 28 years. Of course, we have seen each other, but after 28 years, I was speaking to him. At that time, we were merely a GET, and I saw what we were building. Today, what I see, it's far more different world. When you say, are we leading, I think we should lead in certain sectors, primarily in the material side, and we should be a fast follower. Because there is no way invention can happen one over another, because the gestation time for this innovation is completely getting lost. I remember my first iPhone was iPhone 4. I thought by the time I was trying to realize 1 year, the iPhone 5 was coming. And I was wondering, should I go for it or not? And then iPhone 6 came in and I was still at the iPhone 4. And then I said, okay, let me wait, maybe 7 come and then I will move, right? See, the realization of these technologies is primarily missing in our edge. So one OEM is bringing out something, the another one is coming with another portfolio of technology. The one thing we have learned as Webasto, that appetite for technology in the Indian consumers are much higher than anywhere in the world. Now we are talking about the connected cars. The roof belongs to us, and we proudly say that whatever you built around the car, but the roof belongs to us. And when we say roof belongs to us, this is on the blazing sun, you can see the roof. We said, okay, let's make it a solar roof. We went in, we made some proof of concepts. We've been actually making solar panels for automobile sector for last 30 years. It's not for it's not a new technology. The idea is how you can bring more efficiency to it. Then we went into the cells, which are 35% efficiency. But it was not affordable. And surprisingly, when I calculated this, that if we put it into a small car with this, the ROI was 9.5 years. Keeping the car now, at my time when I was young, I call myself old Pandasan, because I think it's too much of running around in last 10 years. So this 7 years has gone to 3 years. So more than 3.5 years, now we don't keep the car. Right? It's rolling, but the ROI will not come in. So the technology specifically is this one part. The gestation time is missing. So we said one technology is a roof side. The other one is how we can transform a roof into more enjoyable feature, not roof as a roof. That is why you see the new Mahindra 6 and 9E, the roof, which is a pattern lighting. This first time in the world that Webasto bought, and that too in India. And that shows that the Indian consumer has this appetite for this technology. I think a lot going to change in the roof side. When we talk about the roof sensor module, we wanted to take all the LiDARs, cameras on the roof. And that will be a game changer. That means there's no dashboard. We even want to take the dashboard on the roof side. A lot going to happen, and I cannot believe myself that this is going to happen in next 5 years.
And because do you think that these will be designed in India and made for the world, sunroofs or these concepts, technologies?
Well, see, I give you a context to it. Japan, the third largest automobile producer, is still into a TSR, which is called tilt and slide roof, because the innovation hasn't happened there. And then they went into the panorama roof. We are already gone into a top loads, an FTMs, a pattern lighting, and we are talking about the roof sensor module. So when we say technology, we learned that we cannot and cash on 75 euro an hour cost. We need to bring it to the India cost, regardless. And that is the reason why we got in for GCC in 2023, to make sure that we one step ahead, and we not only design for India, we design for the world. And that's why the India is emerging as a big force in the roof system side.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas. So undoubtedly, we have seen in a hot country like India, sunroof penetration is already more than 25% now. So I think all these advancements and, primarily, so roof is not a roof, I think that is what Webatso is trying to do, making it more utility, making it more, advanced in terms of technology.
Punit, I wanted to tell you one thing. The whole world of the roof system changed in 2021. We got the first business from VW, and I think I was the best guy who could predict, and I failed completely. And I thought, okay, the area of 100,000 square feet would be good enough, 3 lines, and we would survive 2028. And then we will plan again our capex. The moment we are putting 1 line, we were thinking about the second line. The second line, we were thinking about the 4th line. In 3 years, we have 2 plants, 1 tech center, and we are thinking about the 3rd plant. And that kind of visibility, let me be honest, I did not have. I thought it was good enough. But then every year is surprising us. We went from 8%, and that too from the segment D and E. Now we are 28%. Next year we got to clock 32% sunroof penetration. It's a huge market. 3 billion sunroof, 3 million is beyond mind-boggling.
Right. Thank you, Vikas. So I move on to, let's see a OEM perspective. Mr. Subramaniam, what do you feel are the 2 disruptive technologies? It can be around safety, ADAS, connected. So I think so what do you feel, maybe from commercial vehicle or passenger vehicle industry side?
Okay, I think I'll pick one and elaborate a little bit on that one so that it makes it more interesting. As I said in my, a few minutes ago, we are using electric vehicles as a platform to reinvent how automobiles are built. And I have this habit of doing this with my team, which is if somebody gives me some explanation of a fact, then I just ask them why. So I try and drill down, right? So the opening speaker spoke about the monsoon coming to Delhi, and we can ask why it is coming on this date. Then the answer may be because the monsoon came to Kerala and the west coast a little earlier than it should. Then I'll ask why again. Why did that happen? So you will realize that if you ask the question why about 4 times, then you will drill down to the fundamentals of the problem. You will actually, if you do this in the technology context, you will come to a very fundamental thing in science that has to explain why that phenomenon is happening. So when we did this exercise once, we ended up with high school physics, 9th class physics, where we ended up with what was the foundation of how an automobile works, which, just to take you all back to high school a little bit for the next couple of minutes, we ended up with Newton's law. Newton's law of motion is literally the most fundamental defining principle for how anything moves. Right? So Newton said something very simple. He said F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration. And that is pretty much as simple, as fundamental as it gets. You can't really drill down any further from that. So we asked ourselves, what did Newton a few hundred years ago try to tell us? Or what did nature or physics try to tell us through that law? It said something very simple. It said that if the force or the effort required to move an automobile depends on 2 things, and only 2 things, which is, one is the M part, which is how heavy it is. That is kind of obvious, right? Because if you have a heavy automobile, then you need a lot more effort to move it. And more effort means more fuel. If you have a lighter automobile, then converse is true, which means you need a lot less effort to move it, so less fuel consumption. But the genius of Newton was the other part, the A part, the acceleration. So what Newton tried to tell us, and we kind of learned and forgot after high school physics, is that what matters for fuel consumption is changes in speed. Acceleration is how quickly you change your speed, right? So that equation is actually quite conspicuous by what is not in it. So Newton said, if you're, for example, driving Delhi-Mumbai Expressway, which is about 1200 kilometers, that distance of 1200 kilometers is actually not present in that equation. Which means, he said, the effort taken and the fuel consumption does not depend on how far you go, which is very counterintuitive, right? Because you would think that if you go very far, then you would actually consume more fuel. It actually also does not depend on how fast you go, right? There is no speed in that equation. It only depends, apart from the weight, it only depends on how much you change your speed, which we kind of realized that very profound fact and very simple fact that we all kind of missed in high school physics. And we said, let's focus on that. Let us innovate based on that. Let us create a whole project and a whole automobile based on that concept, where we only control changes in speed. And that alone will be an indicator of how green and how fuel efficient you are. Because the more fuel efficient you are, I'm saying the more green you are, right? And it worked wonders, right? So what we did was we did a very simple energy audit. And I'm picking electric because in a normal diesel petrol vehicle, you have this big IC engine, which is the elephant in the room. It's actually very inefficient, though it's the bread and butter today, but it's a very inefficient thing. So there's less room for other things. So let's pick electric, which is an overall very efficient system. So we did an energy audit. We drew a pie chart. We said so much energy is coming out of the battery. Where is that energy actually going? And we realized a very shocking, astounding fact, that in that pie chart, if you account for all the losses, all the wastage of energy, right, you only end up with about 2%, which is the energy needed to change the vehicle speed. So every time you press the accelerator pedal, which is accelerating and therefore changing the speed, you only need about 2%, which means if you just put your tech team to work on the inefficiencies in the system, your 100% pie chart can become that 2%, which means your battery size can be 50 times 100 versus 2, 50 times smaller, and you will get the same range, right? So just dwell on that, right? It is a very simple, back to the fundamentals kind of approach. And in no time, and I think once I say it to you, it's quite obvious, we realized that we just forgot something that technology and physics and nature, Newton had told us. It really says an automobile, if you drive Delhi-Mumbai Expressway at a constant speed, let's say you start in Delhi, you pick up speed to 100 kilometers an hour. During that pickup, which is acceleration, you actually, first couple of minutes you spend some fuel, but if you were to maintain 100 entire distance to Mumbai, you actually wouldn't need fuel at all. All the fuel would only go to the losses, which is friction, right, which is aerodynamics, which is something in the tires called rolling resistance. The rubber in the tire has a phenomenon called hysteresis. Right. So we realized that and only that is what we have to worry about, right? There is actually no relation between a battery size and the range of an electric vehicle. This is all true in IC engine vehicles. I'm just picking electric as an example. So the unit of kilometers per liter actually told our brains a very wrong thing, that how far you go, which is kilometers, actually depends on how much fuel you consume, which is liters. Right. In reality, in physics, there is no connection between the two. Right. Thank
you, Subramaniam. So I think going back to the books, going back to the roots, right, and really relearning, I think is what exactly you have been talking about. I think my next question is to Jay and Prashant. So ADAS is one of the disruptive technologies, and if we see Valio, so you have been really democratizing that technology pretty well with two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and even if I see Continental, right? So I think how do you really integrate, like we have different driving behaviors in India. So how do you really adapt the global tech stack from India perspective? So maybe we start with Prashant and then to Jay.
Sure. When you talk about ADAS, I think we need to split this into three parts: assisted, automated, autonomous.
Right.
This trend started somewhere in 2015, 2016, and people were gung-ho, and even the advanced world, that it will go to L4, L5. If you look even today, even in the advanced market, it has not crossed L3. Yeah. So what is suitable for India? So certainly I think it's more of assisted functions, which is an extended safety. And to some extent, some convenient function which could be L2 plus,
L2
like
plus.
automated park assist, this thing. Having said that, if you bring the technology what's available in the other parts of the world, trust me, in India it doesn't work. That's why you need to have that local FOT data, because the use cases are totally different. If I have to tell one, people wear sari, people wear dhotis here. If you bring the same system, it will recognize as a pole. So for that, it's very, very important for you to develop that use case for India, to teach the system so that effectively it works for India. So that's very important. Number two, also how do we make it cost effective? So if you look at the systems, what we have globally, it's combination of ultrasonic sensors, radar, LIDAR is gone away now, and cameras. But it costs, as a system, costs a lot. Can India afford? I think that's where we are developing a single camera system, which is very, very cost effective. And one smart camera can do at least 11 to 12 assisted functions and convenient functions. That's where we are working on, which is most cost effective. Looking at the number of fatalities in India, that's what really required.
Right.
Can India take L3? I think it takes its own time, because it's not only technology, you need to have the infrastructure, you need to have driving discipline, you have to signboards, everything has to come together. So that will take some time for India per se. But today what's most important, L2.
Right.
And also some L2 plus convenient functions. Recently you would have seen in area, that will be the first vehicle to introduce automated park assist with summon mode, so where you can summon the vehicle to your point, wherever it's parked. That's developed here in India, this is the first time. And within that, there's one innovation which came in, which is called as transparent vehicle or see-through bonnet. This actually happened 4 years back. First introduction was in JLR. Now we have carried over to Tatas. This is very simple without adding even a single component. You already have the camera at the front, and it keeps capturing the image. But this for see-through bonnet, it delays by few milliseconds, and you can see the entire floor, or the car become transparent. So that's very, very helpful when you are driving in a very narrow roads where you don't hit the curbs, or when you're doing 4x4, you know really how much is the ground width. So this is an innovation which was developed here in India with zero cost, using the existing equipment. So that's where I would say that ADAS is going through. I think we need cost-effective solutions, which could really, today's penetration is just 2%.
2%.
2%. So how do we make it? Because assisted functions is an extended safety, given the number of fatalities. I think that's where we need. I think how do we democratize this technology by making it affordable and cost effective, is what I think.
So Mr. J, you have made it affordable, supplying to two-wheelers, three-wheelers. So how really you did it? Because being a global company, I think it's a real challenge to first localize in India and then to localize in India at a very effective cost.
See, first of all, for us in value, for us there are 4 pillars of growth based on the mega trends. One is the electrification acceleration, second is ADAS acceleration, third lighting everywhere, and reinvention of interior experience. Now, Prashant mentioned about the affordability. I think that is the most important point. I feel that with the regulation that is going to come in the passenger vehicle segment for autonomous emergency braking, lane detection, warning, and driver monitoring system, all these things are definitely going to give us scale. So it has to be adopted from entry level to the high segment. So that is going to give scale. And what we are looking at is how to make it affordable for each and every segment. So we have three different proposals. One is for the entry level, second for the mid level, and for the premium level. So we have the technologists, but the key question is, how do you fine tune this to Indian infrastructure, Indian road conditions, and how do you make it safer so that we are able to adapt this efficiently for Indian driving conditions. So that is the key. And just one word on the electrification. I think we have seen that today we are just over 2% of penetration in electrification. But I think for four-wheeler, our prediction is, I think even S&P Mobility has this prediction. So it will go to close to 30% by 2032 or so. And there will be faster acceleration in two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And particularly in three-wheelers, it will be a massive acceleration in the next 3-4 years, and followed by two-wheelers. So we are present in all of these segments, and we are investing significantly. We already invested in electrification for four-wheelers, and we started for two-wheelers, though it is in nascent stage now. But I think India, there's a big scope for two-wheeler, three-wheeler market in terms of electrification. And also ADAS, we call it the Advanced Riding Assistance System for the two-wheelers. We are working on those also to improve the safety in the two-wheeler segment.
Right. So thank you, Jay. I think obviously one is about technology, other is about investments, right? So, I think my question is to Ajay. So Ajay, how are manufacturing companies de-risking themselves while investing in next-gen technologies? Because next-gen technologies life cycle is short, right? And we clearly see Minda, really investing in a big way, and building scale through merger and acquisitions also. So how do you see, how do you de-risk yourself as manufacturing companies?
See, different companies, different board, different promoters have different expectation, purpose, how they want to de-risk their businesses. But some of the common strategies which most of the companies do apply, one could potentially be, real partnership. It's not possible, whether from a manufacturing perspective as well as from a technology perspective, to develop everything. So can we partner with the right set of people who can help you to grow your business, number one. Number two, outsourcing. We have seen, particularly from a technology company perspective, Indian originated technology company perspective, how they have built massive outsourcing businesses in India. I have not come across large examples, whether from an OEM perspective or on an auto component company's perspective. From a hedging standpoint, can they really look at outsourcing some of their manufacturing capacity, whether in India or outside India? Third, which I believe could be a game changer for any industry, and more importantly for automotive industry. We keep hearing about government coming up with different type of norms, notification, policy, and it is ever evolving. Yesterday I was watching a news that I believe sometime in November, Delhi will not allow if your vehicle is not Bharat Stage 6, right? Euro 4, whatever. So if it is not there, you are gone. So I am told that there are Euro 6, sorry, yeah. So I was right. So if you are, the point here is that, some cars might be just 4-year, 5-year old. A couple of years back, they said that, if your diesel vehicle, if you are running a diesel vehicle which is 10 years old, you are not allowed to, run those vehicles in NCR. And for petrol, it was 15 years. Now again, the rules got changed. How do you really do this? The only way, and all my co-panelists talked about cost competitiveness. India is becoming expensive. it's very difficult to adopt any technology, whether indigenous or develop anything in India or bring it from overseas, because Indian consumers are not going to pay for it. The real game changer could be waste to wealth. Everybody spoke about car density is quite low. It is low because India could not afford. Now each of the Indians wants to have multiple cars, you know. The density is going to grow, the population is limited, or it is not growing as it was growing a decade back. Therefore, each of the families will have more number of cars. Once you have so many cars in India, and you know, Dr. Prasad talked about iPhone example. Again, it's a great example. People were using 4 years, 5 years phones. Now they are using for 2 years. Similarly, cars were used for 7 years, 10 years. They are going to use for next 2 years, 3 years, and people will keep changing it. What are we going to do with so many cars which got sold? Every year, my data suggests that we sell close to about 6 million, 7 million cars in India. 6 million cars. Imagine that is going to grow at 7 million, and by the time we hit 2030, it could be 15, 17 million. What are we going to do with those cars if we are using it only for 3 years? So waste to wealth opportunity is huge, whether it's for OEM companies or for auto component companies. To give you from a value creation perspective, one interesting data point. The auto component companies in capital market trades anywhere between, give or take, depending upon their governance structure, between 30 to 60p. Okay? The OEMs trades anywhere between 15 to 30. Any guesses for recycling companies, how are they trading globally? It's 100. So मैं गाड़ी क्यों बनाऊं, मैं OEM क्यों बनाऊं, मैं auto component क्यों बनाऊं? आप लोग बनाओ, let me recycle those. And it is equally true for recycling the batteries as well. So there is a huge opportunity, and a lot can be done in that space.
Yeah, thank you, Ajay. So in the interest of time, so obviously, you know, de-risking is about partnership, you know, clearly seeing where you can make money in the entire value chain. So now I come to Mr. Subramaniam. So today we see self-reliance is the key theme, you know, make in India, make America great again. So the question, and the world is clearly moving from globalization to regionalization. So the question is, you know, Mr. Subramaniam, how do you think localization and reducing dependency on imports is important for India? You know, obviously we all see, you know, that every company is trying to make in India, but recently we have few crises, you know, revolving around rare earth crisis, and maybe Ajay, you can add on it later. So what do you think, you know, how important it is to obviously first make in India, make for India, and also make for the world?
No, I think it's a great question. We are heavily intertwined in the global supply chain. I think a little less so than some other countries, but we still are. And we have embarked on the journey for indigenization largely. So in the automobile space, we have now the latest scheme is PME Drive, which is encouraging localization in many different angles. Case in point, the rare earth magnets, I would say, is one of the simpler issues to solve, because even today, there are plenty of motor technologies that actually don't need rare earth magnets. They use permanent magnets, but not rare earth permanent magnets, which are available in India. So there are solutions. I think we just have to embark and work on those. But then something like the electronics crisis is a much harder problem to solve, because we are now completely dependent on electronic components, none of which, zero, is made in India. And for that, the government again is incentivizing manufacturing of electronics starting from scratch, which is clean rooms and silicon wafer level fabrication facilities for electronics. So we have embarked on the journey, thankfully, right? So in some cases, my point is, in some cases, there are alternative solutions. We can find solutions within the Indian supply chain. In some cases, we have to just do it internally. There's no workaround for it. Even in the case of something like lithium batteries, I mean, yes, we say that we have found lithium deposits, we're going to do that, but I think something tells me by the time we commercialize that, we may be having a battery that's beyond lithium. It'll probably be a different material. So might as well start work on the next gen right now.
Yes. So I think, yeah, so Mr. Jay, do you agree that end-to-end supply chain is key for India, or do you think that we need to follow a balanced approach, because I think Subramaniam is very right in saying, that by the time we invest our limited resources, we may be totally out, those technologies may be out. So what do you believe in terms of localization, like end-to-end supply chain, or like a balanced approach, buying something from...
See, obviously, every country is dependent on some country, whether it is minerals or components or sub-assembly. So, but our goal should be to localize to the maximum extent as possible. And I think, I don't think we can be 100% indigenous, because there are some things we have to still depend on. Today, if you take the electrification, I think most of the suppliers are dependent on either Europe or China. And we are not fully localized because this is an emerging trend. We are still not having the scale or volumes. And so we follow a step-by-step approach. So we need scale to maximize localization. So we have to depend on some countries, but I think we should use, as the government and the industry should work on using India with a China plus one policy. We should be the manufacturer for the world. Obviously, there are some things which still we need to depend on some countries, so diplomacy and trade agreements are crucial to source those materials or components. And as Mr. Subramanian said, that these technologies, for example, rare earth magnets is a big issue today. I think we have the ESM motor, which we are working with Renault in Europe, where it will be electrically excited synchronous motor, which is going to have rare earth-free magnets, rare earth-free motors. So these are some technologies, some of the technologies which we can adopt and become self-reliant and not dependent on certain countries which we don't have good relationship.
Right. So that's great. I think obviously self-reliance is important, but certain dependency for global market will always remain. So Mr. Prashant, you have a view here, like do you think 100% make in India is possible, or?
I think there are two parts to that. One is R&D localization, and the second part is component localization. I think given the availability of talent, R&D is one where already India has taken a lead. Looking at the number of GCCs, what we have among tier ones, OEMs, I think there's a lot of work which is cutting edge technology work is currently underway. Having said that, if you look at the India, the R&D cost as a percentage of sales is still less than 2%, whereas the global average is about 8%. And that's where I think India should focus on how do we invest more in innovation so that our ability to really come with more affordable.
So that's an excellent point, right? Investing in R&D. So Ajay, quickly, because you have Vedanta background, right? So will you like to talk about raw materials? Because I think raw materials is also, because rare earth is a part of that, right? So
no, I absolutely right, Puneet. Point bang on. I was listening to all my co-panelists, and they talked about a lot. How we can do localization, car manufacturing, the plastic example. Dr. Subramaniam gave an example of his lecture and students' point of view, body to body. Can the body of the car should be so flexible? I was just wondering, बनाएंगे कैसे? My daughter keeps talking about आज चावल अच्छा नहीं बना, आज रोटियां थोड़ी कच्ची रह गई. I said, guys, do you really understand how difficult it is to make the paddy, the wheat, and so many other things? India, unfortunately, focused a lot, even though on agriculture, but above the ground. Weather kharab hai, because of the heavy rain, the farmers have lost this. A lot of these problems, but hardly, and particularly people, most of us who sit on the comfortable AC chair and a nice couch, hardly talk about what is there below the ground. Maybe, there is not enough information, maybe interest levels are not there. But in my opinion, if you look at not only in India, but globally as well, there is a different world altogether below the earth. And unless and until, while government has come out with critical mineral policy, new mining policy have been announced, and many efforts have been taken, To give you one important statistics, to open a mine and commercialize a mine in India, it takes anywhere between 14 to 15 years. Again, Dr. Subramaniam, spoke a very important point about the lithium. We all heard that in Jammu and Kashmir, we found a lithium deposit. And everybody got very excited. There is a lithium company, but the name of the company is only lithium. It has nothing to do with the lithium production or manufacturing. That day, the stock went up 15%. We all know, right, during COVID also, the name of the company was some oxygen. It never produced oxygen. It continued for the 5 days, hit 20% upper circuit. It had nothing to do with the oxygen. They never produced oxygen. So that's our literacy level when it comes to, rare earth or rare earth material or many other things. So it takes anywhere between 14 to 15 years to commercialize a mine. Now we talk about electrification. Basic, absolutely basic requirement is aluminium and copper. Both the doctors are sitting on my left and the right. They understand engineering and physics quite well. But my mental math tells me copper and aluminium is the basic requirement. And that is only available, large part of bauxite is available in Orissa. And we all understand how the Orissa government operates. Now coming to copper, we are roughly 80% of our copper gets imported into the country. We have a very interesting policy in the country called self-reliant, Atmanirbhar Bharat. कहाँ से Atmanirbhar Bharat होगा मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. How are we going to produce, 7, 8, 10 million cars? And talking about clean tech energy, talking about electrification, complete EV vehicle, basic wire नहीं है. उसके लिए raw material चाहिए, वो available नहीं है. And recent example is quite an eye-opener for all of us, which is rare earth. And we have recently invested, Puneet, you might be aware, in flash technology. It is completely company which depends heavily on the electrical vehicle. A large amount has been invested to take full control of the company. And great company, fantastic products. Everything what they are doing is absolutely next generation. The challenge is these basic fundamentals, basic raw materials will pose a significant challenge unless and until country, the government, and all of us sitting in the room focuses on that.
I think great example, Ajay. So I move on to our next because time is limited. So which is on factory of future, because we are talking about future of manufacturing. So what do you think is the factory of future by 2030? So maybe, just one, it can be around digital twins or use of more renewables or talking about mass customization, micro factories. So maybe, if you can just give one thought, maybe we start with Subramaniam. Yeah.
I'll leave it to the others to detail out what they think, but I'll just give you one thought, which is, I think why do we wear shoes on the road, right? Because the road is not as great as your tiled flooring or your carpet. So the roads are bad, and that needs good automobiles. Same logic. In India is where you actually need smart manufacturing. When you say smart manufacturing in India, people run away, right? They are saying that it's a hand-to-mouth existence. I just have to make sure my production target today is somehow met. I hope my skilled operator, who's a welding operator, is showed up today, right? So it's a bunch of mundane problems we have to solve. It's the reality. That is why we need smart manufacturing in India. It is not something exotic that we are aping the West or, bringing some fancy AI system and all that. It doesn't have to be like that. I think smart manufacturing is something where you become smart enough that you're robust to variations in the process, you're robust to skilled operators not showing up. Basic things like that. So let us concentrate on that and let's become smart.
Right. So Jay,
see, today we're talking about Industry 4.0, digitization, robotization. But I think the future factory is going to have, a lot of this data science and AI into this, all of our processes. So it will be a smart factory with data and also AI. So for example, predictive maintenance will have AI used for predictive maintenance. Quality automation will be with AI. Energy consumption, monitoring and energy reduction with the use of AI. So it will be all about AI, and for example, I can give one example of our factory in China, Shenzhen factory. Recently, they have they call it the dark factory. So there is no light in the factory. That itself, there is a lot of CO2 emissions reduction. There is no manpower inside inside the part of the factory. So future will be all, of course, the adaptation to Indian factories will be, based on our labor force and based on our conditions. But it will become more and more smarter factories, not only in our plants, but all our processes, whether it's finance, purchasing, supply chain, everything will have Gen AI, and it will become a lot more efficient. Our process will become a lot more
So
efficient.
AI and I think clean energy, right? I think where Purushottam Pandasan left, in his keynote. So maybe Prashant, over to you. What do you think is the future factory?
Maybe even getting into details before, what's the definition of Industry 4.0? It's the visibility of material system. If you're able to get that visibility, then your ability to predict or get a prescriptive output is important. That's why it's all about how do we make use of data which is available in the system through a connected missions. Then you have your own algorithm which throws the output. And it's a leadership topic. Unfortunately, in India, still it's a myth. Industry 4.0 is all about cobos and robos, which is not. At least to start with, can we have our missions, everything connected, so that our ability to produce right quality products. And it's also very important for exports per se, because India doesn't have the brand quality. I think this is very, very important for us to have this. So that's why I say it's a leadership topic. It's not a big investment, but some amount of front loading, which has to happen, which could have a phenomenal impact on the output, on the productivity, or even on the quality. We started the journey way back in 2016, our investment. Today, if you see, we have gone up to virtual reality. For example, one example I'll say, we use a lot of equipments. Every time you get a new equipment, getting people trained, retaining them, having spare parts, it's a huge burden. So we got rid of this. Today, connected through virtual reality, if something goes down, actually, person sitting here with the VR glasses here and person sitting in Germany or China, he can take the complete control of the equipment and it could be corrected. That way, been able to reduce a lot of spare parts. So, and also having too many skilled technicians. So, this we have pushed. And also you see India slowly, you see an attrition in the blue collar also. It's not only in the white collar, especially in the electronic industry, you see a lot of attrition happening in the blue collar, and the availability of even skilled manpower. So how do you overcome this? And that's where we also started adopting Cobos. If you talk about Cobos, it just costs 15 lakh rupees, but for us, the payback has been less than 3 years, which is really, which can work effectively between two human beings, adapting to that. So,
sorry to interrupt you. Do you think there will be more humanoid robots going forward in factories rather than workers?
That's already there in other parts of the world.
In India, right.
In India, it will take time. That's why I said first you need to invest in.
So I think at times
missions.
At times is up, Prashant. So we quickly go to Vikas. The last. Yeah.
Okay, I think.
So very quickly, Vikas, our time is up.
Sure.
Thank you.
See, well, what Prashant said is absolutely right. But I yet to understand what future are we talking about? 10 years? 20 years?
Right, so yeah,
I mean, I cannot visualize more than 5 years. I'm sorry. When I say smart, during COVID, the production line came, and the people sitting in China, and we are having a VR goggles, and they were helping us to set up the line. This is the first time. So then I would say 2021, we were the smart people, right? But that wasn't the point. Point is, today, the consumer says, the choice, I would like to have a blue color car. The color is the configurator at the moment. Imagine the configuration goes up to the level of features. That means there is one mother factory, like Ashok Leyland, for example, mother of all factories, and the suppliers like us having a hubs. Many hubs as possible, and having a satellite management to make sure this we can feed this configuration faster than the anticipation. That what I see in next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
I mean, what works inside is, of course, can be robot, can be people. I don't know, but this is what the concept I can see it.
So Pandasan, we came to the forecasting, right? So how
If
much
I
is
had to give an
important?
example,
Yeah, please.
you order something, you get it in 24 hours. They've already adopted in retail something called adaptive shipments. So based on the data, they would have already shipped even without knowing a customer. What's the consumption in the particular area? The moment the order comes, which is in transit, they match it and deliver it to you within 8 hours, 9 hours.
Yes.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you. So I think with this, I thank all my panelists, for engaging in very thoughtful and rich discussion. And thank you all, for hearing us. So one thing, since I worked with Maruti Suzuki, so one of the key taglines, 20 years back was one of the marketing advertisements, it was about fuel mileage, right? All of us know kitna deti hai, right? And I think now, going 5 years, 10 years down the line, we may see an ad from Maruti Suzuki, kitna smart hai, kitni green hai, right? Because that is going, that is where the technology direction is going, and every customer may be looking for more smarter, greener and cleaner vehicles. With this, thank you very much for your time. In case if there is any question from the audience, one question, because I think there was a request from Nilesh. So anybody? Yeah, right. So with this, thank you very much. I think thank you all.
I'll request everyone to kindly stay back for a photo op and